Ndubuisi Ekekwe to the podium.
Thank you. Thank you. Please sit down. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And let me begin by thanking the chairman of our occasion and the chairman of our occasion, and also Professor Sunday and Engineer Kasim and all other members of the high table. I also want to thank the university leadership, Professor Francis Eze, represented here, and all the leaders of our university, Federal University of Technology Owerri. So I want to thank the alumni leadership, Engineer Chijoke Ndubuisi and Chinedu and all of you, Collins Opera, for what you are doing for our University Association. Also the council, the leaders of our alumni, the really big people behind what the Alumni Association is doing. People like Felix McQuintos and Sir Ndukwe Ajala, Dr. Andrew Jawareze, and JKJ, all of you, we sincerely thank you so much for what you are doing for this association. And to my classmates here, I want to say, bam. Res Mafiana, Ozeis, and all of you, we really appreciate that you have come here today for us to continue this tradition of excellence that we have in this university. And to all great FUTOites, tenacity, focus, excellence, technology, service, we are the best. We are FUTOites. And all the undergraduate students and postgraduate students who are currently enrolled in our university, we thank you so much that you have chosen FUTO for your university needs. Ladies and gentlemen, it's quite an honor and privilege for me to have this opportunity today to speak before you and in this capacity. It's quite a great moment for me. I will be having a conversation today titled The Pursuit of Exponential Development. We'll be looking at constructs, models, processes, systems, capabilities, and frameworks and cases which are necessary to drive the efficiency in the utilization of the factors of production. As we do that, our hope and expectation is that Nigeria will see a ramping of growth. And when that growth comes, great things will happen in our nation. And to begin that, I want to take you back to FUTO. That's my first slide. You know, I had a very great education in Federal University of Technology, where I grew up in a village in Abia State in Ovim. And one afternoon, my grandmother told me, Ndubuisi, it's time to go to the city. You know, I had tried to negotiate with them that they should just allow me to live in the village. I really like village because in my village in Ovim, life was really cool. Why do you have to leave village? Say, you have to go to university. So I came to FUTO. The Math 101 came, the Bio 101 came, Chem 101 came. I could not really see any significant difference from what was happening in the secondary school. Because if you have taken the last year of secondary school education, there is that propensity that your first year university program was actually very, very close to what they have done in the secondary school. So if you take further mathematics, the secondary school last year further mathematics is the first semester course for physics and mathematics in the university. So I didn't see any major change. I said, is that what they do in the university? They would really allow me to stay in the village. But things started changing. Things started changing. A professor came into class one day and said, we'll be here to teach you logic and philosophy. And I recall vividly that they have introduced us to natural philosophy in secondary school. And we were trying to introduce us to biological and the physical science in SS1. They mentioned something on natural philosophy, and now someone has come to actually make it a course. I say, awesome. Let's go through this process. So he asked us a question that day. What is the material component of the universe? What is this world made up of? I tell you something. If you are looking for the embassy of God here on earth, don't look further. We have them in FUTO. We have the CASA, we have the NIIA, we have the Catholic student, we have cherubim and seraphim, we have the Olumba. Everything, we have them there. And you know what happened? They raise their hands up and say the world is made up of the Holy Spirit. You know, fascinatingly, the professor did not agree. He said that tales say that the world is made up of water. He said that Heraclitus say that the world is made up of fire. For them, it means that everything on earth could actually be put in a liquid form for thousands. And for Heraclitus, everything could be burnt. But I like what he said about Pythagoras, the guy that gave us the Pythagoras theorem, that in a right-angle triangle, that if you take the individual squares of the opposite and adjacent, you sum them together, get the square hypotenuse. Pythagoras said that the world is made up of numbers. And if the world is made up of numbers, it means that the business of humanity is nothing but the business of numbers. It means that the mechanics of market, the constructs of market, understanding economic systems of nation, we can also use numbers to represent them. And I'll show you a plot. In that plot, you see the GDPs of nations over the last 2,000 years. You see that in that plot, you see that America is there. In United Kingdom is there, China, India, and all countries of Earth are there. And across this period of time, you could see that China and India, they actually dominate a big percentage of the GDPs of nations over a very big period of time. In other words, in the last 20 centuries, China and India have actually been very dominant in the world economy. It was in 1896 that America became the largest GDP on earth when the United States of America took over from the United Kingdom. So what is happening here is that people have used the constructs of numbers to examine the growth of nations by capturing indicators of the GDPs of countries. And now breaking that further, I show you these plots. Just using the GDP of the United States and the GDP of China. Essentially, these are the two most dominant economies today. So we can use them to extrapolate how the nations of the earth are actually competing. If you go that more than 500 years ago, you can see that the GDP was flat. In other words, generations of people that lived apart did not experience any major change in their living standards. Because it means that if the GDP is flat, even when population was increasing, it means that generations of people are actually getting poorer because the per capita income was actually decelerating, correct? Because more people are sharing more valuable economic opportunity that is actually in that economy. And it was the same time that Reverend Martus, if you have studied in agriculture in secondary school, postulated that food production was going in arithmetic progression, while human growth population was actually in geometric progression. So he felt there was a very great paralysis in the economic system in the world because man was not growing and expanding the economic system as fast as the population that we were in. But if you go back about 500 years, something started changing. Right here, the GDP started becoming exponential. Right here, the GDP started moving exponential. All through here, it was flat. There were empires and kingdoms. There were the Obis, there were the Obas, there was the Emis, all of them here, but man was significantly poor. It wasn't just because that man was not intelligent. It wasn't because that man was not thinking. What was happening there, the mechanics of market was not working around this side. Some of the most fundamental concepts of physics and chemistry and mathematics, they created them around here, but you see the GDP was flat. Now, something really happened. Why, from a flattened GDP, we now started seeing exponential growth in the GDP? My conversation with you is how to know how nations like China, how nations like America were able to now ramp up their GDP so that it moved from being flattened into exponential. So I'd ask you this question. Why do we even have to measure this thing called GDP? Why do we have this word, GDP, the gross domestic product, this phrase, whatever? It's because markets are not perfect. If markets are perfect, there will not even be a need to have economic activity. Let me explain it this way. In any economy, there is demand and supply. And the relationship and the interface of demand and supply is largely imperfect. In other words, the man who wants to buy something and the man who has something to sell cannot even efficiently come into equilibrium point easily. So because of that imperfection in the system, there is now a need for a company to exist because there are frictions that exist between demand and supply. I want to eat nkwobi. And one thing I can do is to go around the whole Nigeria looking for somebody that has nkwobi to sell. You want to drink zobo, you want to also go around Nigeria looking for somebody to sell you zobo. Or she wants to really like amala, and she wants to do the same thing. You agree with me there is a lot of friction for you to be knocking at the door in each family in Nigeria looking for people that can actually sell you the services. So what happens? One woman says, let me start up a company. Let me start a venture. That venture is ABC Restaurants. If you are looking for zobo to drink, if you are looking for amala to eat, if you are looking for nkwobi to enjoy, just come to ABC Restaurants. You know what ABC Restaurant has done? It has fixed the friction that exists between me, who wants to eat nkwobi, and someone who can actually provide that nkwobi. That any time I want to eat nkwobi, I just go to ABC Restaurants. That means that companies exist to fix frictions which exist between demand and supply. And if companies exist to fix friction between demand and supply, the most important element now is how is that company efficiently doing that demolition of friction? Efficiency, utilization, capabilities, constructs, models, processes, systems, cases, and frameworks upon which these companies, through aggregating economic activity, efficiently do this thing will determine how vital and how productive an economic system. Because GDP is nothing but the total monetary value of all finished goods and services. And because companies exist to fix market friction, the way you solve those frictions is what we basically capture in the GDPs of nations. So let me go through this. What are the elements that companies need in order to fix frictions? What are the elements that are captured for companies to efficiently have the capacity for them to fix this market friction? The first thing is knowledge. The second one is entrepreneurial capitalism. The third one is capital. The fourth one is the velocity of land. And the last one, I'll call it labor. These are what we remotely call the factors of production, because these are the elements that are used in the productive system across economies in order for us to fix the frictions, because that's what companies technically exist to do in any market system. Knowledge. You know, the Bible says that when Moses appeared before the Israelites, they marveled because he has studied under the Pharaohs. The best university system, if there was anything like a university, was in Egypt, because Pharaoh has the best astrologers. Pharaoh has the best thinkers. Pharaoh had the best dreamers. And that means that Moses was trained at the best possible place that he could have actually had the best education during his time. And he commanded a lot of respect before his brethren. And because of that knowledge that Egypt had, Egypt ruled the world in his time. And from the Egyptian time, we went through the Babylonian Empire, when the time of Nebuchadnezzar, they ruled the world. And at the same time, we went to the Roman Empire. There is something that is consistent in all these constructs and all these nations. There were people ahead of their peers in the accumulation, acquisition of knowledge, and the utilization of knowledge. In other words, for you to have the efficiency and capability to build companies and ventures that can actually fix those market friction, you need to have the capacity that you can create the best possible knowledge in that particular environment. If you go to Greece, Athens today, you see the road to Thessaloniki. And if you fly into the Kausai Island, you see all the shipping lines they have built. At the time that Greeks dominated the world of knowledge creation, when they had the best thinkers, the best philosophers, they were also building the best shipping lines in the world. From there, you can see the Isles of Patmos right then downside of Rome. They rule the world in knowledge. They rule the world in commerce. It has always been like that, that the best of America today is not because they make the best bombs. The best of America because they have the best university system, and that gives America the capability that it can renew itself, it can refresh itself, that no matter what the world throws at America, America can reinvent in order to find efficiency, how it can continue to solve the frictions that exist in the American economic system. For Nigeria to rise into an exponential development, we must be a nation that can create knowledge. And as we create that knowledge, the next thing here is entrepreneurial capitalism. Entrepreneurial capitalism is now who are going to be the messengers that can help us move ahead of carrying this knowledge. There's a man called Andrew Carnegie. In the Carnegie family, he's a steel baron. When he went to pioneer the steel industry in America, even the government didn't know what he was doing. He wrote the ordinances for steel. And you look at a man called Rockefeller, he did the same thing in the energy sector. Look at J.P. Morgan for financial, B.A.Y. Mellon, and even here, Ndubuisi Ekekwe for healthcare summit. So what I'm saying, we need a world, people who are going to be pioneers in what they do. Pioneers are people that say, I am taking this entrepreneurial capitalism, I am going to use my knowledge base to fix the frictions which are evident in the marketplace. It doesn't have to begin with government. All you need, people that can pioneer things. And as you do that, of course, you need people that follow you. These are the level. I studied economics in secondary school in SS1 because I did further mathematics. And you know, if you do further mathematics, they will not allow you to do economics. So what I did was to read economics over one semester in secondary school and took GCE. So in SS1, I already gotten a distinction in economics. One of the textbooks I read was written by a man called A.O. Lawal. If I remember very well, in chapter 3, he wrote about the location and localization of industries. Now, one of the reasons why you have to look where the labor is, correct? And he said location and localization of industries. In other words, for us to build the elements for the efficiency in the market system, we have to find where the labor is. And I'm not just talking about the sit-down-run labor. I'm actually talking about knowledge worker labor. Nigeria has about 60 million, largely 60 million working people in the working population. So we need to have them designed, we need to have them energized, we need to have them prepared, because we need them in order for us to efficiently fix those market frictions. Because our ability to fix the market friction is actually what is going to give us the opportunity for us to rise and get that exponential development that we need. Of course, there is something I call the velocity of land. Go to your village. Look at the house you have in the village. Most of those things are dead assets. You know, a man has died, unfortunately, and left behind a wife and children. But the man also left behind 300 hectares of land. And yet, the family is still very poor because the land technically has no value. Because Nigeria has not weaponized by bringing liquidity in that piece of land. Imagine if it's possible that that woman can say, in that remote village in Zamfara State, I have 300 hectares of land. I want to sell just 50 hectares. And with these 50 hectares, I can essentially train these children and also provide medical services as needed. What am I saying? We have an element for factors of production which is not even working because our land does not have the liquidity and ease of transferability that makes it possible that people can actually use them to fix their frictions. And as you do that, we talk about capital. The one for capital, I take you back to this curve. If you see here, there is something that happened in the world why even America started seeing the ramping of its GDP. The first patent in the world was issued in 1796 to Samuel Hopkins. Samuel Hopkins was issued the first world patent. In other words, the world of intellectual property started ramping up here. And there is a clear correlation that in any economy, when there is rule of law, when there is respect for intellectual property, when man has that animalistic capitalist greed, that if I can innovate first before you, and I have the exclusivity to commercialize that and be protected from market forces and legal system, I will be more interested in doing more because I'm going to make more money and I also go and invest more. But if you have a world where nothing happens, nothing goes, anything goes, they will steal your idea, people will not release capital. And that's what happened. People here invented everything, but it was an inventive society. They're all professors, they're all thinkers, but they were never innovators. Innovators are people that have products and services because innovation is equals to invention plus commercialization. If you have not commercialized it, you have not innovated because you are just thinking ideas, and ideas does not change the world. The ideas can only change the world when the ideas are working, when the ideas have been transferred into products and services, into policies that can actually impact people's lives. So when they created all those inventions and put them in shelves in universities, the world did not see any product to buy. But now, when they now brought in the patent system, the man that have money will now say, hey man, I saw here that you've come up with something really nice. I'm going to give you money. But the government is giving us 21 years exclusivity for us to commercialize this. I guess within 25 years, I'm going to make a lot of money. So give this money. But before, they were not giving that money because they felt that, why will I give you money to commercialize the idea so that another person will rip it off? And that's easy. So most nations are still here. Unfortunately, Nigeria is still at this point. So now we have known these elements. The question, how do we improve them? How do we improve that capital? How do we improve that entrepreneurial capitalism? How do we improve the knowledge? How do we get the velocity of land? And also, how do we get labor? I think Nigeria needs to fix our tax code. If you fix our tax code, great things will happen even for capital. Great things will happen for knowledge. I'll give an example. You know, there is what they call the trade war in America between China and United States today. Apple has seen a very big risk in its business. Apple, the one that makes iPhone. So Apple says, I am going to bring some of the factories, some of the factory jobs I have in China back to the United States. But it's immediately realized that it doesn't even have the young people that can actually help it essentially run those factories. So Apple says, I don't even know how to get these young people because the American educational curriculum system have not been producing people like these guys. So what will Apple do? Apple say, let me give money to schools. They call them community colleges. They are like the OND version of the polytechnics. But do you know the reason why Apple will prefer to give money to school over doing it itself? Any money Apple gives to university, it is tax deductible. In other words, you can give money to university and you can also be made whole. And that is the reason why most rich people in America and Western Europe are fond of giving money to schools because there is a very clever tax system that actually stimulates people to give money to school because the more money you give, you can actually be offsetting your tax obligation in other places. Nigeria does not have that system. Because when you give money to FUTO, you expense it in account, and you are just doing Father Christmas. And that's why a lot of people will not do that. If you have a smart tax code policy, you are going to see people injecting more capital into the university system. You know, there was a period when GE was not paying tax. America said, we want to build a special plastic for our military system. And he said, if you can invent this plastic, we are going to give you a lot of tax waivers. And today, for most companies that do R&D, if you put money in research and development, government has a policy in the United States that actually allows you not to pay tax in certain areas of your project. So tax code is very, very critical. Another one is IPR, intellectual property rights. We need to have a construct that market system will be governed by the rule of law. And if we have the market system that is governed by the rule of law, Nigeria will move from an inventive society to an innovation society. Because innovation society is a society where there are goods and services. There is no problem in this country people have not discussed in a beer parlor last night. They have the answer how to fix electricity. They have the answer how to fix, get those products. But the next morning, the next 2 weeks, the next month, the next year, nothing has happened. There is a reason for that. It's lack of capability, and it's also lack of having the necessary environment for people to inject capital into the system. And the third one I will point out there, what I've called regenerative destructive policy. You know, we like to protect the traditional incumbents in this country. We want to make sure that the banks keep having their good profits. Nothing wrong about that. But the problem is that when you are protecting the banks, you are now harming innovation in the system because you do not allow creative destruction to happen. And remember, if the purpose of company is to fix the market friction between demand and supply, protecting all traditional industry, you are actually harming the ability to go through a positive continuum of continuously fixing the frictions that exist between demand and supply. So we have not figured out how to do that. And I give you a very simple case. When America saw that internet was coming up, they had to make a decision. Do we want to build a commerce on the internet? Or do we just allow the old traditional retail stores to continue to dominate retail? So US said, okay, we are going to have a law that if you sell things online, you are not going to be required to collect sales tax on anything you sell online. That is a very great decision. And that is a very, very transformational and catalytic decision because you know what it means? It artificially lowers the price of anything you buy online by the tax that you are required to pay on it. Because the company that is selling is not required to collect the tax from you, even though you are asked to file the tax yourself. Who does that? No one does that. So you go to a physical store. The something costs $100. And you go online, the same thing costs $100. But if you buy from the physical store, you pay, let's say, 10% of tax. Means you have to pay $110. But if you buy online, you know what, you pay only $100. Then the business started shifting from physical stores to online stores. And just like that, they were able to build a new company, and that new company is called like Amazon. Amazon recently was up to $1 trillion in market capitalization. That is what I call regenerative disruptive policy. Ability for people to know that something good can happen if they drive policy that can actually energize a new industrial system to emerge in an economy. Today in Nigeria, how can the Central Bank of Nigeria allow the fintechs to have an opportunity to compete with the banks without necessarily having policies that can actually make it difficult for the fintechs to compete? Unless we do that, the continuum efficiency, improving efficiency in fixing the market frictions will not happen. And then we need to deal with our national demon, which is corruption. That's the demon. I don't know why we have not been able to cast it out in the churches and the mosque. And the thing is extremely, very, very stubborn. But if we can cast out the national demon, the corruption, we can now have a better environment for us to fix those market friction. There are two things really we can do. One is procurement system. You know, when you look at companies at FPT, which founded by my classmate, Res Mafiana here, if you say, hey, Res, come over and say, hey, I want you to archive every contract from in all parts of this national government. And before any contract is awarded, a small artificial or a small query is done to compare the price of this new contract with what government paid the last time. If there is a very huge deviation from normal, we can now say, don't pay. Because, you know, most contracts are paid by the Central Bank of Nigeria at the federal level. In other words, that if you require that every contract that is actually signed off in this country before Central Bank of Nigeria pays, that contract is put into a database which is scanned for the price and the product and specification. You say, oh, this man wants to buy a car, 7 million naira. But now, it triggers an alarm. Oh, another person bought the same car for 3 million in the same city. Now, instead of EFCC waiting for the 7 million deal to go through and now go and raise the man the next day, EFCC will say, oh, let me call the man. Say, sir, DG, you see, this car you want to buy 7 million, somebody actually bought it 3 million. Do we call the man to come and supply you at 3 million? We still keep your 7 million in your budget. So, but Nigeria has not simply done one of the simplest things it can do to build a database of pricing systems so that before all these payments are made, somebody can actually have opportunity to examine when things are just out of hand. because we prefer prosecution over prevention. So if we have technology that can be deployed into these constructs, we are going to have the capacity to do great things in the economic system. Now, of course, I also mentioned that I believe vividly that the way we distribute fuel in this country is not really very optimal. You know, today what we really do is very simple. Somebody goes to the fuel depot, you put a GPS tracker in the truck, and the guy drives the truck from Lagos to Kanu, you think, without knowing that the fuel has been diverted to Togo. So, yeah, the truck will still get to Bauchi, but unfortunately, the liquid content of the truck has gone to Togo. And that's when the newspapers are saying and the radio people are saying, hey, Bauchi has received 10 trucks of fuel this morning. Bauchi has not received any fuel. Bauchi has just received empty trucks that was supposed to contain fuel. So why can't Nigeria just put a sensor in the truck that can track both the movement of the truck and the liquid contents of the truck? These things are not rocket science. These things are evidently available. But yet, we have not used them to improve our ability to fix the frictions in the downstream sector of the Nigeria petroleum sector. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we have proved these elements, what are going to be the industries we have to focus? I think the first one is agriculture. You know, I'm a farm boy. I grew up in the village. I really like farming, people. If you fix agriculture, you are going to fix this country. 65% of our working population are employed in farming. If you double farm yield in Nigeria, poverty will drop by 37%. And we also estimate that 67% of school attainment will ramp up. Because, take it for instance, Yobe State has 7.2% literacy rate. Imo State has 96.43% literacy rate. You can see the deviation between Yobe and Imo State. Now, our national per capita income in 1960 was $92. By 1966, it's $124. But the highest Nigeria has ever achieved was in 2014, which was $3,221. Now, the global benchmark is $17,300, while Luxembourg $104,000. So the point is this: the highest impact you can actually effect in this country to improve the well-being of our citizens will be how you can energize an agricultural system to make it more modern in order for people to actually drive efficiency in the way they do the agricultural process. If you fix agriculture, many things will be fixed in this country. And of course, you also have to fix healthcare. Healthcare is very, very critical because you need to have a very healthy economy. If you have to have healthy people before you can have a healthy economy. You know, I've seen cases where across these nations, there are people that crawl on the ground. Just go to Semes, go to Abalande, you see how men are using their keys to beg. I think sometimes they actually hand those little kids so that they can receive sympathy, so that somebody can give them 100 naira, 200 naira. And yet they are doing this thing and no one has picked them up to say, if you can just get this guy to a hospital, that big wound can actually go. But if the wound goes, the woman will not have source of income. And that means that people are using their children, putting them in extreme harm just because they want to raise some small money. You know, I see miracles in the lab. We are used to miracles in churches and mosques. You know, in my research area, we do what we call neuromorphic computing. It's a special type of electrical engineering where we study nature. We study the human anatomy, we study human biology. We look at the synapses, we look at the central nervous system, we look at the efferent neurons, intermediate neurons, and synapses, and we try to see how nature communicates and does everything it does in the human system. Every person, let's say the people that crawl, the people that are disabled, we don't use the word people that are physically challenged. Do you know that their legs are not necessarily dead? What is happening is that their brain cannot send signals to the neurons on their legs. If for any reason Nigerian government says, let's buy this special microprocessor that you can implant on their spinal cord so that when the brain sends a signal, those legs can be reactivated, those people will walk. And that is a miracle in the lab. It's not in the one in the church or the mosque. I know you get your own. I say this thing, ladies and gentlemen, there are so many things that can happen in the healthcare sector. And that is the reason why you see these American soldiers, they have just returned from warfare, paralyzed. But before the next 6 months, they are running marathon. They are running marathon because they have gone through a healthcare system that is modern. And as we fix that, I also believe that our real estate has to be real. What we have now is not real estate. What we just have here is just something that doesn't even make sense, because how can you tell me that a man that has 1,000 hectares of land is considered to be a poor man? It doesn't make sense, because the land does not have any liquidity or velocity. When I use the word velocity, it means that it has to have the capacity for somebody to easily sell and buy that land, irrespective of the location of that land in any part of Nigeria. If people can have the opportunity in remote areas, in Sokoto, in Abia State, in every part of this country, to sell a portion of their land easily and efficiently, you see that wealth will be unlocked out of this country. There are people that are sitting on acres of land, yet they are dying out of abject poverty, because Nigeria has not figured out a process to help them unlock value out of the assets they have. Digital asset register, making it possible that all lands in this country are actually put into a database so that they can easily be bought and sold at will. And now maintaining a very solid framework and make sure there is no element of fraud or corruption. I believe that our startups can lead in that change, but government has to provide a framework that will make it possible for them to lead. And when I just say that, I'm talking about technology. Technology has so much it can do. Technology has so much opportunity it can offer this country. But that technology can also come when we have to deploy knowledge in the university system. My proposal is that we need about $10 billion every year in the university system. Of course, you know that one university in America budgets more than all the universities in Nigeria combined. How are you going to compete with them, people? Even if we just think that we wish it, it's not going to happen. So $10 billion will now help us to begin to invest in teams of the future. We need to build the capabilities, because without the capabilities, we cannot have the opportunity to create new knowledge, which will help us to attack those frictions in the marketplace more efficiently. And unless we attack those frictions more efficiently, we cannot ramp up the GDP. I don't want to come here to become like another professor who does this liturgy of talking. And I want to show you practical cases of what even my own company is doing. The left-hand side is one of our products called Zemvos. Zemvos is an agricultural, precision agriculture company. If you put our sensors in the soil, they'll collect information like temperature, moisture, humidity, electroconductivity of that soil, and you will send that data through Wi-Fi, GSM, or satellite into a cloud server where we have used some computational algorithms. And the farmer will now have inside a better understanding what is happening in the farm. So instead of you going to buy goat and buy cow or buy fowl to sacrifice to your ancestors and your gods to help you have a humble harvest, we ask you, forget about those crops. Come here and get Zemvos, because we are going to help you with tools and data to know what is happening in the farm and what the crops need. It is as simple as that. Your ancestors likely died very poor. That because they are dead, they are not going to make you rich. The only way they can help you become rich is if you begin to change what you're actually doing. So no matter how much effort you try, even you're upgrading from chicken to goats, you are not going to get lucky. So what we do here is, as those crops begin to go, we also have hyperspectral cameras that image the vegetation of the farm. We use a computational algorithm called NDVI, normalized different vegetation index. It's essentially a very small mathematical system where if you look at the electromagnetic waves as incidents on the vegetation of crops, we now see how the absorptive capacities of those crops actually happen on those electromagnetic waves. By using that, you know when the crops are sick, when they are attacked by disease, when they are attacked by pests, when they don't have enough moisture. And concatenate that data, we now tell you what, when, and how to farm. And it's very, very fascinating, because we can tell you in the next 3 days, you need to irrigate this farm. But hold on, rain is coming in the next 6 hours. So what is happening there is that we save you effort to actually waste resource. We tell you, don't even try to apply fertilizer in the next 3 days, because rainfall is going to come. because it's going to wash out the fertilizer that you're about to apply. What I'm trying to say here is that we need to have a mechanism of using these modern technologies to advance our agricultural system. The right one is what called Mexera. It's essentially a healthcare product that it makes it possible that we can aggregate electronic medical record system of people. You know, what happens in most hospitals in Nigeria, the doctor begins to take care of people without knowing their medical record. But we are hoping in our work is to see in future that if you just finish from a mosque or finish from a church or finish from a market and you feel like you are having a little headache, we ask you to just put a sample, either your little blood or your saliva, on a reader, and when you print it, our system will run some algorithms using your medical record that we have already integrated there through your dashboard and say, man, it seems that you have malaria. And that one there actually dictated tuberculosis for Ndubuisi. That's a prototype. And what is happening there, that once it dictates the malaria, it says, okay, we see that your pharmacy is ABC Pharmacy living very close to you. We have ordered, is it fancy that to your own risk? I don't know what the hell to treat malaria. Now you go there and pick that drug because we have dictated that you have malaria, and then you go to the pharmacy and pick the medication. What I'm trying to say here, it is not replacing medicine. It's not replacing doctor. We are trying to figure out how do you reduce the marginal cost. Marginal cost is the cost of serving an additional customer. There is no way the number of doctors in this country can serve all the citizens of this country. That means that technology needs to help these doctors to become more efficient in things they do. And that means that one doctor now, instead of serving one person at a time, can serve one person, can serve more than 1,000 people at a time. That's how you begin to improve the well-being of the citizens. If our confidence interval is not up to 98%, we just ask you to press a button. You can now speak with a live doctor. It's a promise of the future. It's the capabilities that technology can create exponential impacts. And the well-being of the citizen will become unbounded and unconstrained. And Eldorado will come in the lives of people. And as we do that, I want us to now change Adam Smith economies with Umunoma economies. Umunoma economies. You know, we have these Adam Smith economies about the dominant companies, comparative advantages, competitive advantages of nations. But I really like Umunoma economies. Umunoma economy means shared prosperity. It means abolition of inequality. It means as I'm doing well, my brother is doing well, my sister is doing well. It means that when you go to the village, every person is sweeping from his own side of the village, and every person comes to the market square, come to the village square, because everyone has a broom to sweep. I don't want to see one man as a forest. I don't want to see a dominant player. I want to have the capacity that everyone is actually sharing the good of Nigeria. It's a very critical thing that we have in this country through the Igbo apprentice system, which has made it possible that a man goes into a village, brings in 4 or 5 boys to his office, and now begins to groom them, that one day he begins to divide his market share among them. But therefore creating his own natural competitors, because he has a passion that it doesn't make sense that he will go to the village and he is the only one who has risen. Because he wants to make sure that he goes back to the village, those young people can also have opportunity to have their own lives. The sun is already thick in the day. The sun is very soon sets. In Zamfara today, a young girl, I just finished playing in the schoolyard. And in Yobe, a little boy just had a very good time playing football. You know, where the girl knows that after school she has to go to stay with grandmother in the farm. And in Ibadan, the boy says, I'm going this afternoon to the market because my mom said I should come and carry something. The old man has just finished an evening time. It's time to get ready going back to the village because the farm day has come to pass in Jos. From the east to the west, from the north to the south, boys and girls, men and women, they are in this moment of expectancy that Nigeria will have this exponential development. But for these people, what really matters for them is that they have exponential development in their lives. They want to see exponential well-being in their lives. They want to see exponential development in their lives. It's not just that Nigeria is seeing exponential development. We are all FUTO-wise. We are the best. We are called into this technology for service. With all these constructs, tenacity, focus, excellence, and service, we have to build their future for all to rise, and not that the few has risen. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
I think that round of applause was not enough for this caliber of lecture. One more round of applause. Thank you so much, Prof. That was an excellent presentation by Professor Ndubuisi Ekekwe. Okay, at this juncture, we want to recognize the presence of Mrs. Linda Mado, the Associate Director of Corporate Development, next to you. We're also recognizing the presence of Engineer Belonduru, a former National Vice President, FUTO Alumni Association, and a Director of Chimons Gas Limited. We recognize the presence of Professor Damian Dike, a member of BOT, a professor in Federal University of Technology, Owerri.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I had to quickly give a small attention. Professor Ndubuisi Ekekwe, please, I was not here. Let's put a round of applause for him once again, please. If that was done in my absence, I really missed it. The man has been able to do what I think I've not seen. I hear of professors. We hear of